This is very exciting to be here today. I just want to say good afternoon. I want to thank and recognize a truly great man with one of the best haircuts in Congress, Representative McGovern. He has been an incredible champion. He's been dedicated in his relentless leadership in tackling the hunger and nutrition crisis. He's inspired me, and he's been inspiring so many in our country. And I'm grateful for him to be my partner now on this effort. And I'm so just enthused that he's standing with us as well. I want to thank Tom Colicchio. Where is Tom? Another man with a great haircut. He is an extraordinary leader in America, someone who is using his voice and his platform, his energy and his resources to really talk about how we can meet the crisis of hunger and the nutrition crisis in our country. And really, he's been speaking for years about how to repair America's broken food system. And so we're here to talk about what is one of the most personal issues in our lives. It's something that is deeply influenced by our federal policy, and that is America's food. Food brings us together. Food is at the center of some of our most cherished memories in life. Food is supposed to nourish us, to fill us, to fuel us. But right now in the United States of America, we have a nutrition crisis that is literally killing us. It's shortening our lifespan. It is targeting our children. It's disproportionately hurting the low income, the marginalized, black and brown communities like the one I live. It's destroying our very heritage of family farmers. It's gutting rural communities. It's all making us sicker. And the only people that are winning are big multinational corporations. We have a nutrition crisis in America where nearly half of all adults in the United States are pre-diabetic or have type 2 diabetes. We have nearly 25% of the teenagers in our country are pre-diabetic or have type 2 diabetes. This nutrition crisis in America allows someone in a community like mine to go to a bodega or a corner grocery store and find a product loaded with sugar and artificial ingredients, actually cheaper than a healthy snack like an apple. In part because, shockingly, only 2% of our federal ag subsidies go to the one thing that our government tells us to eat most of, which are fruits and vegetables. We have a nutrition crisis in America, and it's part of the problem that is really a problem we just don't talk enough about. And that's because we have big food companies that are putting profit before public health. And they want us to believe something that's a lie. They want us to believe that things like hunger and obesity are somehow moral failings. Well, it's not a moral failing to have such widespread child poverty. It's not a moral failing that we have an almost epidemic level of obesity in our country. It's a failing in American food policy. The crisis right now in America is not about a failure of Americans to, quote, make good food choices. It's about a decades-long policy failure to address deep-seated structural problems in our food systems that we in this nation are subsidizing to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. We know that big food companies purposely formulate and market nutrient-poor, addictive, ultra-processed foods, and then folks want to blame the consequences on us. We have a collective responsibility, especially here in our federal government, to step in and protect the American people. The year that I was born, the President of the United States convened a White House conference on the urgent national concern of widespread hunger in America. What resulted was an unprecedented expansion and creation of vital programs to tackle the hunger crisis. But over 50 years later, we are still grappling with the same hunger crisis. And now we have the additional crisis threatening America's health, which is nutrition insecurity. This is a moment where we need to fundamentally rethink and rework how we approach food and nutrition policy in the United States. And the best way for us to begin this process is a White House conference, the second ever White House conference on food, nutrition, hunger, and health that convenes the public and private stakeholders to reimagine, to use our moral imagination, to reimagine federal food and nutrition policy. That's why we are introducing this bill to convene a second White House conference that will address the three most urgent challenges when it comes to fixing our broken food system: hunger, nutrition insecurity, and diet-related diseases. Because the fact is, the way our food system currently operates is a choice. It is a choice, and we can change it. We can choose health. We can choose vitality. We can choose to have an American life that is abundant. It is within our power to tear down this broken food system and build one that doesn't starve and poison the American people, but feeds and nourishes them. And to do that, I am calling for a new coalition. We must have in our nation a new coalition. We must have a coalition with activists and advocates like those who are here with us today to close and end what our broken food system is doing. We need a new coalition with healthcare professionals who understand the relationship between nutrition and health, between nourishment and life success. We need a new coalition with independent family farmers who are being driven out of business, standing up with the same against the corporations that are making us sick and begin to partner with them. We need a new coalition with food and farm workers who are too often not being protected on the job and not being paid a living wage by those same big food companies. We need a coalition that begins to help us understand that we're all in this together. It's not rural versus urban versus suburban. No, it is one America, and we need to join our communities in a common chorus of conviction to fix this broken food system, to eradicate food deserts, and ensure that every child in America has access to abundant nutrition. And we need a new coalition here in Congress, not one that is about right or left, but one that is about ending the wrongs and all of us choosing what is right. Lawmakers that understand that every issue of justice, from environmental justice to economic justice to health justice, it all intersects with our food system. We have a nutrition crisis in America, and we can no longer be silent about it. We have to end the absurdities. We have to invest in Americans, not invest in the continuous broken systems that are hurting Americans. We need to speak up. We need to speak out. And we need the White House to convene with all of the leaders who are stakeholders in America and begin to chart a way out of this broken system and a way to higher ground for us all. I am honored to bring to the microphone now a true champion of making sure we end the hunger crisis in America, a champion for ending the nutrition crisis in America, a friend of mine and an incredible leader. I bring you Congressman McGovern.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I love Cory Booker, and I want to thank him for his leadership on this and on so many other issues involving social justice. He's one of my heroes. I'm also happy to be here with my colleague from Massachusetts, Ayanna Presley, who is an unbelievable member of this institution, and I'm happy to be here with Tom Colicchio and my friend Kimberly Harris, who you'll hear from in a minute. Let me just say that this is an important moment in the long, difficult struggle to end hunger in America. Not dull its impact or lessen it bit by bit, not tinker around the edges, but finally, truly end hunger once and for all. That is because this afternoon we are unveiling a bipartisan, bicameral bill that would convene only the second White House conference on hunger in American history. The last such conference was in 1969, the same year we put a man on the moon. It led to landmark legislation and nearly a decade of transformational progress in the fight to end hunger in America. It spurred the creation and expansion of programs such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which we call SNAP. the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, WIC, and the National School Breakfast and Lunch Program. Now, it wasn't perfect. Far too many of the people there looked like me. Far too few had actually experienced the pain of hunger or the uncertainty of food insecurity or nutrition insecurity. But it brought us one step forward toward ending hunger once and for all. There was a time in this country when we dreamed big and the sky was the limit. We reached for the stars and we put a man on the moon. We weren't afraid of meeting challenges and solving problems. We could do that again. Now is the time for a hunger conference for the 21st century, one with diverse voices and those who have lived what it's actually like to be hungry in America. One that looks at hunger, food, health, and nutrition in a holistic and new way. It's the kind of thing only a president can convene. You know, the COVID pandemic woke a lot of people up. It showed that hunger isn't just a problem for someone else. It's something anyone can struggle with the blink of an eye. But the truth is, this isn't a new crisis. More than 35 million people went hungry in this country before the pandemic, including 10 million children. In the wealthiest nation in the history of the planet, that is a moral outrage, and it is time for us to act. You know, we've got a Congress and a president willing to think big. It's time to seize this moment. As chairman of the House Rules Committee, I've been leading an effort that builds a record to inform this conference. We have been doing hearings, we have been doing field visits and informal chats with everybody and anybody who's related has a solution or an idea on this issue. So President Biden can hit the ground running and prepare a conference that's more than just a press release. We want a real conference to end hunger, not a press conference to end hunger. Congress is doing our part. We just need the president to say yes and get on with it. By providing $2.5 million in funding for a White House hunger conference, this bill is designed to get us to yes. Now, I've spoken with everyone from the White House, everybody from the White House Chief of Staff and Cabinet Secretaries to folks all across this country who are working on solutions to hunger. And I believe we will get to yes. I believe that hunger is a political condition. We have all that we need to end it. We just need the political will. And with the help of everyone here today, from my colleagues to the activists in the crowd, I believe we will soon get to yes. Now, I especially want to recognize those who support this cause but couldn't make it here today. From our Republican co-sponsors, Congresswoman Walorski and Senator Braun, to all those outside the halls of Congress who have fought to wake people up to this crisis. I had a conversation last night with my friend, a great humanitarian, Jose Andres, who has worked tirelessly in support of this conference. He's shown the world how, if you're willing to step up and lead with compassion, how you can change people's lives. And he has fed countless people and changed their life for the better. It's been a real inspiration to me. Let me end with this. You know, I often say that hunger is a political condition. Well, we've got the food, we've got the know-how, and yes, we've got the money to end it. All that is missing is the political will. So today you're seeing what it looks like when that begins to change, when we make progress, when both parties and both chambers and stakeholders from across America work together to build the political will. I want to thank my colleagues here for working with me in this effort to end hunger now. And let me just close with this. As some of you may know, my first political job on Capitol Hill was working for Senator George McGovern. No relation, he had a great last name. But this was one of the issues that he and Republican Senator Bob Dole championed. And he talked about how he became aware of this issue, watching a 1968 documentary entitled Hunger in America, when he saw a young child who was asked by a reporter how it felt to be hungry. And the little boy said, "I'm ashamed." And George McGovern said in response to that documentary, you know, it's I, a United States Senator, who was on the Agriculture Committee, who should be ashamed. Nobody in this country should be hungry. And after all these years later, we've made some progress, and then we have actually reversed on some progress. We've gone backwards in some respects. And I have met too many children in my congressional district who are hungry. I've talked to senior citizens who are hungry. I've talked to workers who are hungry. And like Senator McGovern, I'm ashamed that anybody in this country goes hungry. This has to be a priority, and the way to make it a priority is through this conference. And so now I want to welcome my friend and my colleague, a true champion from Massachusetts and a fighter for all Americans, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley.
First, just a word about my brother in good right there, Congressman McGovern. You know, there's that adage that people come to Congress to change the world, but the only thing that changes is usually the member, and not always for the better. I just want to say that Jim McGovern is one of the most consistent humans I've ever met. He is a man of unrivaled moral clarity and principled integrity and conviction, and he has been indefatigable in his cause to end hunger. And I just want to again thank him for his example and his leadership here today. And of course, it's always good to join Senator Booker. So we thank him for joining us as well. I want to begin with the words of Angela Y. Davis, who said, "I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things that I can no longer accept." Food insecurity is a policy choice. We have become tolerant to the suffering of our neighbors, while our neighbors feel invisible. They feel palpable fear and anxiety and trauma, and they feel shame, when the shame really belongs to all of us for our inaction, for our tolerance to their suffering. And as Congressman McGovern so aptly pointed out there, this is a solvable problem. And so we find ourselves with this humanitarian crisis because of inaction, because of a lack of moral clarity, because of a lack of political will and courage. This is the moment where we tackle that deficit of empathy, that deficit of political will and courage. Proud to be here today in solidarity with every family in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and across our nation who knows the palpable fear of not knowing where their next meal will come from. We're here today for those who have faced the harsh reality that they don't have enough healthy food to feed both themselves and their children. Let me make it plain. Food insecurity is traumatic. It is trauma, plain and simple. It is an unspeakable trauma and a form of policy violence that society has inflicted on our most vulnerable and marginalized neighbors. It is a trauma that we have the tools, the capacity, and the responsibility to end. And there is no time like the present for us to act while we continue to use words like reckoning, an unprecedented moment for our country. Well, people are experiencing unprecedented hurt, unprecedented hunger, unprecedented trauma, and we must meet the moment with unprecedented leadership, with unprecedented coalition, with unprecedented convening, with unprecedented legislating, with unprecedented investment. This is a humanitarian crisis that demands of us a humanitarian response. Hunger has been a national concern for years, but the pandemic has elevated it to a national crisis that is expected to touch the lives of 42 million Americans, including folks in my home state of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, our home state, where the COVID crisis caused food insecurity to double, and where the height of the pandemic saw 1 in 6 people struggling to afford food. The statistic was even worse for Black, Hispanic, and Latinx households, with children there, 1 in 3, facing food insecurity. So we're here today to call on President Biden to partner with us and to act with urgency to meet the moment that this crisis demands and to convene a White House conference to confront food insecurity and hunger head on. Now, convening this critical conference is an important step forward that will move us closer to eradicating hunger. We all know all too well that trauma affects people intersectionally. So we must uplift the voices of our most marginalized and collect the data necessary to truly understand the disparate impacts of this crisis in our communities. Our collective response has to be one that is robust and comprehensive, that leaves no community behind. So often I've said, and seek to practice this, that the people closest to the pain should be the closest to the power, driving and informing the policy making. It's why I've always sought to use my platform as an elected official to uplift the voices and concerns of those who have too often been ignored and left out of our public discourse. As a Boston City Councilor, I convened the City Council's first ever listening-only session to hear directly from some 400 community members impacted by gun violence. As a member of Congress, may my forever Oversight Chairman rest in power, Elijah Cummings, serving on the Oversight Committee, I convened the first ever congressional hearings on childhood trauma, which we know is only growing because poverty is traumatic, because fear of deportation is traumatic, because being unhoused is traumatic, being displaced is traumatic, exposure to gun violence, domestic violence is traumatic, and hunger is traumatic. And earlier this year, for all the reasons I just enumerated, I corresponded asking the White House to have a trauma-informed recovery, asking President Biden to hold a White House summit dedicated to addressing our nation's growing trauma crisis. So when it comes to examining how to address our hunger crisis, our trauma crisis, and those that are caught at the intersection of both, I can think of no better platform than the convening power of the White House. So again, I thank my brother in arms here, one of the most consistent humans I've ever met. And I thank Senator Booker for recognizing the urgency that this moment demands. I'm proud to join you both in this call to action and to urge my colleagues to support this bill. Because those facing food insecurity cannot and should no longer have to wait. This is not their shame to bear, it is ours.
Amen.
Thank you.
Next, I want to introduce a very good friend of mine, Tom Colicchio. I first met Tom through his wife, Laurie Silverbush, who's a filmmaker. And a few years ago, she did a documentary called A Place at the Table, documenting the face of hunger all throughout this country. And it was a really powerful film. And I got to know Tom in that process as well. And Tom is not only a famous chef, but he is a great humanitarian, somebody who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. And I'm thrilled that he's here. Please welcome Tom Colicchio.
Thank you. Congressman McGovern, thank you for inviting me to share the stage with you. You have been a hero of mine in your fight to end hunger, and you know that. We spent many conversations on this very issue. How do we get a White House conference to end hunger? As a nation, we can accept nutrition as a national responsibility. The moment is at hand to end hunger in America now. Those are not my words. Those are the words of President Richard Nixon, and those are the words that he delivered at the first White House Conference on Hunger. That was 1969. And the work that was done in that conference almost accomplished that goal, to end hunger. We were there. See, all these signs behind me that say end hunger now, this is a reality. This isn't some dream. This isn't something that maybe one day we'll talk about and we'll feed a few people and we'll feel good about ourselves. No, this is a reality. This can happen now. We almost did it. And what happened was the 80s came around and it ushered in the era of shrinking government. And we've done that. You've all heard we want to shrink government to the size that we can actually drown it in a bathtub. Well, we're drowning. And the people that are hungry are drowning. and the children of those families are drowning. And they're drowning in nutrition deficit that affects them very, very deeply. We're almost there. We can do it again. It's going to take more than a conference. It's going to take stakeholders coming together, banding together to come up with great solutions. We don't want big government. We want smart government with good policies that are focused on people. Most importantly, we need to bring the voices who are suffering hunger, because they will provide the solution. They'll provide the pathway to solution. Simply having a bunch of politicians around a table are not going to do it. We need to hear directly from people who are suffering. The reason my wife named her film A Place at the Table, because we felt it was important. She felt it was important that, again, those people need to come around the table, the people who are experiencing hunger. And so what are we missing? What are we missing when we don't have food to put on the table? The shame involved in not being able to feed your family. When we know as a country that we have seniors that are making decisions whether to actually purchase medicine or purchase food. And if they're taking medicine on an empty stomach, there's health consequences to that. What are the consequences of a child going to school hungry? We know that educational outcomes rely on good nutrition. Now, we have enough calories in this country to feed everybody. Now, calories are cheap. Nutrition's expensive. For those that want to feed our families healthy food, it is very, very difficult to do. And so we can do better. What are our priorities? As a nation, what are our priorities? Can we stomach even one person going to bed hungry? That shouldn't be it. As a country, we can end hunger. And I think, we saw in the pandemic there was about 36 million people who were hungry at the beginning of the pandemic. I think that rose up to about 60 million people. And so what do we aspire to? Going back to 36, 37? That's not what we should aspire to. We should aspire to ending hunger. But I'm actually encouraged because we all saw the news reports. We all saw the lines of cars lined up to get food. And these are people who never in a million years thought that they would line up for food. These were solid middle-class people who were living a good life, never worrying about it. But you saw those lines. And I'm hoping that as a nation we have a deeper sense of empathy. Because every one of us, so many of us, are one disaster away from being in trouble. And so a White House, I applaud President Biden and the White House for the work they've done now. But we could do more. And so I encourage the President to convene this White House conference with the single mission that we can actually solve this problem. This is one of the biggest problems that we have, especially when you think about food and you think about what it touches. National security, food touches that. Education, it touches that. Healthcare. We actually had a way to actually deliver more nutrition to our citizens. Healthcare costs would come down. And so these big issues that we hear about every election cycle, and we don't hear a lot about hunger, with the exception of a few people that were here today. We don't hear it because we don't want to admit as a country that we have hungry people here. We want to look to developing countries and feel that they have this issue. But we have it right here. 36 million Americans. It's unacceptable. We can change it. It should start with the White House conference. We need it now. Thank you.
And we have one final speaker before the hurricane hits. I met Kimberly Harris, who is the CEO and co-founder of Women's HQ at the Capital Area Food Bank. As I said before, I think it's really important for all of us in government to understand that we need to listen to people with lived experiences in order to figure out the best solutions to some of the challenges. And I am thrilled that she's agreed to be here. So please welcome Kimberly Harris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to Chairman McGovern for your commitment to ending hunger and being a terrific person that you are. I also wish to thank Chairman McGovern for being such a supporter for experiences of women like me on food insecurity. Thank you to Senator Booker also for your long commitment to survivors of domestic violence. It matters to us that you work the hotline, that you want to close the boyfriend loophole. And thanks to all the speakers here today for the commitment to ending hunger. You get it. Everyone here today gets it. What I don't understand is what some people don't understand about hunger. My name is Kimberly Harris, and I am the proud CEO and co-founder of Women's HQ. I am a daughter. I am a mother. I am a domestic violence survivor. And I am proud to be a member of the Capital Area Food Bank's Client Leadership Council. I want to thank the Capital Area Food Bank leadership for advocating alongside Congressman McGovern's office, who has been instrumental in this effort. I am rooted from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where my life began with two remarkable parents. My mother worked in healthcare and my father in law enforcement. They taught their children how to manage under the most difficult circumstances and challenges to achieve the success we wanted for ourselves. I was 3 years old when my father passed away, and in an instant, my mother became a single parent of 6. She was suddenly maneuvering one income. My siblings and I never identified being raised in project housing and on food stamps. We never knew we were battling a food insecurity, and we certainly didn't believe we were low income. Food stamps made it possible for my mother to get fresh dairy delivered twice a week to our front door. We received fresh meat deliveries. Mom shopped bi-weekly at farmers markets less than a mile away from our home for fresh fruits and vegetables. We never felt like we lived in a food desert. We had access to high quality food that was nutritional. The federal food system helped provide support for my mother, who was navigating both the trauma of losing her husband and the father of her children. As an adult, my battles with food insecurity developed when I was in a relationship that turned violent. As a woman and a mother, I recognized that safety and security were my first immediate priority. My education and career path were interrupted. The support and benefits I received helped me lift myself out of poverty. These experiences helped me to make me much stronger and much wiser, thanks to the resources and opportunities provided by the District Alliance of Safe Housing, DC, and the Feeding America Capital Area Food Bank. Federal emergency assistance ensured I could focus on my studies and achievements. I earned my bachelor's degree from the Catholic University of America in business management and went on to get my MBA with a focus in leadership from Georgetown University. It is important for everyone to understand people are not seeking ways to suffer from systemic oppression. Some of people that are victims are just in current circumstances that we need to understand. People don't always know where to go to get help. Sometimes even if they do, they're always met with barriers. And I understand the importance of taking care of our neighbors, our brothers, our sisters. Through a whole of government, a whole of society approach, we will ensure families will have access to healthy food and safe housing. Interrupting and ending cycles of poverty begins in understanding the common good for all. That means leaders like Chairman McGovern and Senator Booker are working for survivors. Senator Biden authorized the Violence Against Women Act, creating a bridge to safety for many survivors. Now, as President Biden, he is leading with the first ever national gender strategy, which expressly addresses the intersection between domestic and gender-based violence and poverty, food insecurity, and housing instability. My focus as a domestic violence survivor and advocate is to develop innovations for women of color who are navigating out of poverty, homelessness, domestic violence, and food insecurity into reclaiming their lives. I want to encourage leaders in Congress, like Chairman McGovern, Senator Booker, to please continue to support of programs and federal benefits. Your support of community development efforts will ensure farmers markets like the one my mother shopped continue to transform moments of despair into a healthy foundation. Making sure farmers can deliver to local supermarkets can help create change in communities facing food insecurities. These benefits support reliable access to high quality and fresh foods for small and large business operations providing food delivery, just as the programs did for my mother when she was raising me and my siblings. The deliveries from the local farmers meant my siblings and I felt connected to our community. And more importantly, it connected our community to us. Meeting women and children where they are without judgment of the circumstances surrounding their urgent need is critical. Each one of us is worthy of dignity and access to safe housing, healthy foods, and education. My experiences are both unique and similar to so many others. I hope Chairman McGovern's efforts to convene the Food Summit at the White House are successful. This will ensure we have access to all our nation has promised us. Thank you.
So I just want to say that behind me are people who have been advocating on this issue for a long time and have done incredible work. And I've been writing down who I've been seeing here, so I'm sure I missed somebody here. But I see Feeding America, DoorDash, United Fresh Produce, FRAC, Save the Children, World Central Kitchen, the Congressional Hunger Center, Mazone. I don't know, who am I missing? Anybody? Food Corps. Wanda. Share Our Strength. St. James Food Services. Who? Academy of Nutrition and. Okay. What? National WIC. Coalition for Food Security. I mean, yeah, this is why I should have. Anyway, but these people have been champions on this cause. But anyway, I don't know if anyone has any question before the tornado comes up here. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. You were great, Emily. Thank you. Both of you were great.